round. Every card tells a story. Some people watch a fight. We study them.
From the prelim lights to the title fight glow. Every round got a lesson if you're watching it slow. Not chasing hot takes, we're chasing what's true. Finding diamonds in the regional scene before they break through. We respect every style, every path, every craft. Break and take frame by frame while the rest just react. No gimmicks, just rhythm. Every breakdown precise. Where the numbers meet the nuance. That's the edge, that's the price.
Gotta switch the audio back or we'll get some weird shit the whole time like we did the last couple of times. And what's up, everybody? This podcast is brought to you by King Arthur Capital Group. Fund your fight camp, showing fighters how to leverage credit and capital so they can treat their career like a business. Conor, are you hearing anything with it right
now? You sound kind of muffled.
I swear to God.
You sounded okay now.
All right. Maybe it took a second to kick in. All right. Showing fighters how to leverage credit and capital so they can treat their career like a business. Love sharing that information with as many people out there in the combat sports world as possible. Financial stability for all levels of fighters in all areas of combat sports will only be a great thing for the entire wide world of combat sports. So if you're looking to make your path in the sport, maybe work a little easier, looking to sleep a little better at night, looking to help fund your fight camp, treat your career more like a business, hit up King Arthur Capital Group at Fund Your Fight Camp on Instagram. Check out Fight Club Crate, mystery fight gear, knockout prices, undisputed value, combat sports boxes delivered monthly. Use my promo code TAPTHAT15 at Fight Club Crate for 15% off of your initial purchase. Follow those folks on Instagram at Fight Club Crate. Very cool stuff. They're adding new products from cool, new independent businesses all the time. If you're into combat sports, as a fan, as a practitioner, you'll love what Combat Crate has to offer, what Fight Club Crate has to offer. That's Fight Club Crate. Finally, a winner of a gift idea for the combat connoisseur in your life. And Substats is the analytics and intelligence platform for competitive grappling, giving promoters, leagues, commentators the data they've never had. Matchmaking tools, athlete profiles, event breakdowns, and match analysis powered by computer vision. If you compete, if you promote, you just love competitive grappling, check them out at substats.app. If you're into competitive grappling, Substats is building the analytics layer the sport has been missing with athlete profiles, event intelligence, and match breakdowns. Check them out at substats.app and on Instagram at Substats. Use my promo code TAPTHAT for 10% off of your initial purchase with Substats. And what is up, everybody? This is Brady Grove bringing you another No, this is not an interlude episode. Jesus, that's the pattern I've been in. Bringing another episode of the Tap That MMA podcast. We got PFL Mania and we got Octagon this week too. We got more action in the Ultimate Fighter season 34, which I've been able to catch up on. Fantastic talent in this season. Also glad we don't have to worry about the two coaches fighting at the end of the season. What a weird alignment of the stars they were trying to do for all that time with that. But I'm trying to put out like more short videos, making picks for other events outside of the UFC. I've got one scheduled for tomorrow where I'm going to try to do some quick hits on some other events. So check that out. Follow me on Instagram at RotoBrady MMA and on YouTube at Tap That MMA Podcast, on Spotify at Tap That MMA Podcast. Check out the recent interlude episodes that I've put out with Charles Miller of Striker Fight Network, with Chad Fishburne, international ring announcer and all-around electric ring personality. Check out those. I put out a bunch of YouTube shorts and Instagram reels and stories and all that business, if that makes it more palatable to you folks out there. We've got UFC 329 this weekend from Las Vegas, Nevada. It's a blockbuster card for a few reasons, but mainly one reason. And with me tonight to discuss such a blockbuster event, it's almost like the Transformers debut premiere of UFC cards. Is this one? Frequent guest co-host of the podcast. We always have him here for the special occasions. Give it up for Conor Bones Sloan. Conor, how's it going tonight?
It's going good, man. I can't believe we're getting spoiled with 2 back-to-back great cards. It was so interesting and weird seeing the UFC on the White House lawn. Ultimately, what turned out to be a great card. And now we're getting a McGregor card, which, of course, brings in all eyes. It's nice to, even if you're not a fan of McGregor, you have to acknowledge it's nice to have so many eyes on the sport whenever he fights. So happy to be spoiled. Can't wait to see the Holloway McGregor, and just great to be here, man.
Yeah, like, to lead off on an upsetting note, there are multiple accused rapists on this card. One was held in some way sort of responsible, not criminally, but civilly. Have you looked into the Gable Stevenson thing? I've never read more than like a sentence about it, so I don't pass an opinion off on it. But you strike me in my knowledge of you as a person, seems like something you might have read more than a sentence about at some point.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not super caught up on it. I will say that I have read some, opinions around it, mostly on Reddit. So take that with a grain of salt, take that as you will. But from what I have read, it seems pretty reputable. So I don't like that as a look for him, but sometimes you just got to be able to separate the art from the artist. I'm here to watch fights. I'm not here to hold anybody criminally or civilly liable. I think if they are reputable claims, he should have his day in court and take the evidence as you will. I'm always for holding people accountable, even if they're exciting fighters. So, if there's evidence for it, take him to court. Let's see how it holds up. But hopefully we can look past that for the sake of this podcast. But like I said, if he's guilty of it, throw the book at him.
Yeah, it's like, he wouldn't be the first athlete to be wrongfully or rightfully accused of rape.
Right.
So yeah, that could be anything. If you are a Olympic gold medal wrestler and you use that God-given ability to commit a sexual assault, that's like a different level. That's like when you hear John Jones like hit his wife, and it's like, dude, like if you hit almost anybody that's ever lived, it's going to do like traumatic damage. So what are you doing hitting your wife with your 84-inch reach, John? It's a weird thing around the card, but like, if Conor McGregor is going to be your main event, this is kind of an energy you got to lean into. And that kind of works for the UFC. Like Gable is he's on as much of a rocket ship to stardom into the top as I can recall a like heavyweight prospect ever being, and not like even Josh Hogan. Like Josh Hogan came kind of out of nowhere. Like that one happened fast, and he had to come up with a character. Francis, that one kind of like snuck up a little bit because we knew he had his limitations as a fighter, and then he made Alistair Overeem forget third grade math, which I'm assuming he knew at some point. He's from the Netherlands, so I bet they have a good public school system. But that was kind of a different thing. But honestly, like Brock Lesnar does come to mind, but he was not like, you wouldn't call Brock Lesnar a heavyweight prospect. Like Gable is somebody that at every point you're like, okay, like early on you're like, oh, he's fighting on this elevator. Oh, he's doing that. He's okay. Let's see. They're really pushing this guy. And at every single opportunity he's had, I've gone, holy shit, this guy is really good. This guy in like a few weeks might be the best heavyweight in the world. And then it's just about him getting an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen, he's training with the right people. He's training with legitimately skilled heavyweights like Daniel Cormier, and he's obviously got the physical ability. If he has the game plan, and obviously can bring his striking up to par. I mean, heavyweight, as we've seen, there is a lack of real athletic heavyweights that are well rounded and explosive. So if he can just bring it together, even the slightest amount, if he can bring his athleticism and skill up to par, like he'll dominate. He'll be top 5, and like you said, in 2 weeks. It's just that is how shallow the heavyweight division is right now. So it's good to see some actually exciting prospects. Josh Hokett, as much as I hate his character, damn, he's a good fighter. You got Gable Stevenson, Olympic gold medalist. Like, that's awesome. And then I think you got Jamal Hill just getting fat and turning into a heavyweight, which is the totally opposite side of things, but also incredibly hilarious. So I would love to see heavyweight kind of get a resurgence. It needs it. I think you just need talented fighters like Alex Pereira. Even though his heavyweight debut didn't go so well, he showed up 250 pounds. However you look at it, he's an incredibly skilled fighter. We just need more people like that. We need more light heavyweights who are willing to pack on some muscle, or in Jamal Hill's case, just get fat and to fight in heavyweight. I think there's a lot of untapped potential in the market just with light heavyweights or even middleweights. Just pack on some muscle or some fat, go to heavyweight. The gates are wide open. I think there's plenty of opportunity for light heavyweights to move up and put on some entertaining fights. So let's see it happen.
And there was something like Pereira moved up to heavyweight. Jamal Hill is going to move up to heavyweight. Alexander Rakic is going to move up to heavyweight. And there was one more. One more I'm forgetting at light heavyweight, around like near the top. But it's weird, and it emphasizes just more to me the need for cruiserweight or bridgerweight in MMA, because it is something that, like, at light heavyweight, you see guys that are a step ahead of the vast majority of heavyweights in terms of agility and athleticism, but it just doesn't work most of the time to go from light heavyweight to heavyweight. You're talking about a different kind of size for a lot of people. Alex Pereira looked big. He did look big. But it's the difference in how you've been used to fighting for like decades at that point. I don't think Jamal Hill will ascend. I don't think him or Alexander Rakic will ascend past like top 7 at heavyweight. I think that's being like pretty generous. It just depends who you fight now at heavyweight. Like how many of these round guys might be retired soon. They should be. But that's a very hard transition. That's a fucking gap of 65 pounds. That's a huge difference to make up. And you always think they'll be a step quicker, but then when you see them in heavyweight, when Alexander Gustafsson moved up to heavyweight, when OSP moved up to heavyweight, when Ryan Spann moved up to heavyweight, Johnny Walker, that was the other one, went up to heavyweight.
Yep.
These are guys that it's like, oh, that guy could be a heavyweight champion. Like you've seen what he can do at light heavyweight. You see what some of the slop is at heavyweight. Like you don't, but in the action, it's like they're in quicksand. So I would love to see cruiserweight or bridgerweight in MMA, because it's a step for some people to go. It's a place for people to go if they want to change the scenery or they want to try to get 2 belts. But it's not like absolutely ridiculous. And as we're seeing right now, heavyweight is starting to catch up to the future. Like right now, the 2 biggest things, the 2 thing that could be the future of the heavyweight division are Hokett and Gable Stevenson, as much as that is going to bother people. And the people that hate both of them for, one for a completely fictional reason, one for a hopefully fictional reason. But with both of them, when people talk like shit about them, it's like, oh, Josh Hogan failed at being a college football player and failed going to the NFL, and now he's in the. It's like, okay, well, first, that doesn't really matter if this is his job now. But they say that, and then they say about Gable Stevens, he failed trying to go to the NFL and he failed trying to do WWE. And it's like, well, first of all, he was an Olympic gold medal wrestler, so like, you don't need too much gravy on top of that. But also, he had never played competitive football before. And when you're talking about heavyweights that can do all of those things, that is a different stratosphere of athleticism, agility, and ability. Tied to Ivasa could not have played college football outside of the offensive line. Like that, those are the football players we used to see in MMA. Those, like, the Mitriones and those characters, they were just big dudes. Now Josh Hogan was a fullback and Gable Stevenson was a nothing. He's just good at sports. So, if we start to see more characters now, okay, hold on. If we start to see more guys with these skill sets and these God-given abilities as Hogan and Gable Stevenson, then, then heavyweight will take a dramatic upturn. There's a chance because of these two that heavyweight will be the most popular division in the UFC in just a few years.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see heavyweight growing, and I think a lot of those guys that you mentioned, moving up from light heavyweight, they could have a lot of success. Like Johnny Walker, anyone that is cutting down to get to light heavyweight, I think they could easily, hover around the top 10, top 15. They're probably never going to be champ, but they're going to be a ranked fighter. They're going to give us good fights. They're going to get fight of the night bonuses. I think for a lot of those guys, that's all they want. They don't necessarily want to be champ, or obviously they want to be champ, but they know that they are never going to be championship level material. Like Johnny Walker, he's never going to be champion. He has the one glaring flaw that is going to prevent him from being champion, and that is his chin. So just guys like that, maybe. Yeah, maybe just don't cut weight, make your body healthy, put on some muscle, give us some good fights, get some good fight of the night bonuses. Maybe you'll be top 10, maybe not. Who cares? But I would like to see that. So I'm interested to see how things play out. But when it comes to, Gable Stevenson, and he's championship level material. If you get his striking up to par, he could easily be champion. I mean, he could submit Cyril Gahn probably with relative ease. Who knows? I think heavyweight definitely needs a shakeup, and I think Gable Stevenson is a good way to shake things up. I think some light heavyweights moving up is a good way to shake things up. So I'd like to see that. I think heavyweight's been stale for a bit. When you have people like Blagoy Ivanov, or not Blagoy Ivanov, who am I thinking of? The Blob. When you have the Blob, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Shamil Gaziev. When you have people like Shamil Gaziev that are like winning fights in heavyweight, you have a lackluster heavyweight roster. So that needs to change. Heavyweight could be one of the most exciting divisions.
Waldo is something too. Waldo is kind of a different heavyweight than we've seen in a bit.
He's good. He can be frustrating, but he's talented.
Just the speed and the precision with his hands. The fact that he was a pitcher in the Cincinnati Reds minor league organization at one point. And that's the thing, as you're seeing people who have roots in baseball, football, basketball starting to come over to MMA. It definitely is going to open up for the bigger divisions, because look at the average point guard for a college basketball team. What is he? 6'3", 225 pounds. Holy, that's the point guard. And then you look at a center, 7 feet tall, 330 pounds, running 90 feet down the court and jumping and catching the ball with one hand and dunking it 360 reverse. There's crazy levels of athleticism out there that just haven't hit MMA in a practical way yet. We'll see it. anything goes down where it either dies or it like hits resurgence, and I don't see them getting rid of heavyweight as much as they seem to have tried over the last couple of years. So let's get into it. We've got, I believe, 14 fights on this card. Son of a bitch, dude. I swear to God, the last time I did just picks by myself, it took me like 2.5 hours. That was my fault.
That's why I'm like, I'll do main card.
Starting off. Yeah, those last ones, dude, I made it through like 5 fights and I was about to like collapse or like start crying on camera when it was just me. That was tough. Let's start off with the main event. The main event, Conor. I really like, I can't believe I'm about to say this.
I know, it's so weird.
But the main event at 170 pounds, Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway 2. Go get this.
I want to tell me what you see. Let's go ahead and see by the fight what you saw in the ring.
Conor McGregor. Conor, you're now the second most famous Conor associated with this card. Conor McGregor is the plus 190 underdog. Max Holloway is minus 225 as the favorite. Conor, I will make my analysis as brief for this blockbuster main event as I possibly can because I don't think there's much to talk about. And I went to Muay Thai tonight, which is why I had to delay this because my body was falling apart in the immediate aftermath. And I heard people talking about the fight. And they're like, yeah, dude, but like, is McGregor, like, you see him working out? Like, he looked huge, and like, he was saying, like, that stuff he does is sweet. And I was like, dude, none of these guys have any experience with cocaine. They've never seen anybody do it. They've never seen it in a bag. They've never known anybody that ever saw it in a bag. Dude, let me explain something to people. All right. Conor McGregor's last win in the UFC was well over 6 years ago against Donald Cowboy Cerrone. That was the shoulder knockout in that fight night. It wasn't a fight night, but it was free. That was 6 years ago, 6.5. Since then, he got finished by Dustin Poirier. And about that second Dustin fight, I maintain like Conor looked great up until the damage on the leg just like depleted his video game health bar. You know, like his hands were great early in the second Dustin fight, but it was just like, is he going to be able to finish Dustin before Dustin takes his leg out? And his legs went, he couldn't move. Dustin finishes him. And then the third fight, clearly Conor McGregor, like he was very like, he was mentally gone. Like the dude that won all those fights and said all that awesome shit when he was on the cover. I don't care if people hate him or not pretend. Son of a. What is that? That is driving me crazy. Hello. Just right here. You can't pretend like Conor McGregor's come up wasn't something special. There's a reason that he broke every date record. What is that?
Okay, well, while you are dealing with your technical difficulties, I will give you my opinion on the fight, just so we don't have some downtime here. But I think, I mean, it's not a matter of if Holloway is going to win. It's just a matter of when he finishes the fight. I think Holloway, round 3 sounds good, maybe even round 2. Just once Conor slows down at all, Max is going to absolutely take over and dominate. Like, he's going to finish him. Honestly, I think he's going to end Conor's career. Like, I see no path to victory for Conor here. I think the second he slows down, at all. Holloway ramps it up, takes it over, finishes the fight. We saw what he did to Justin Gaethje. And that's Justin Gaethje, who is the current 155 champ. We saw what Justin Gaethje did to Poirier. I know MMA math doesn't work, but when you have someone like Holloway, who is he's been a striker from day one. He's an amazing striker. He has amazing cardio. He is incredibly well-rounded on the feet. And you have someone like Conor, who last win is in 6 years ago. The only reason he has this fight is because of his name power. The only reason. And Holloway's going to demolish him. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Holloway round 3. I mean, plus 225 or minus 225, even though it's a pretty heavy favorite, the odds should be even crazier. Like he should be minus 1,000. Throw as much money on him as you want. 225 minus 225 is great odds for this one.
I would conservatively say one second here. All right, we're back. I would conservatively say that Max Holloway should be a minus 450 favorite.
Maybe even more. Maybe minus 800 is how I see it.
At the absolute minimum, this is the most.
You can just understand what you're saying. I'd say just roll with it, and we'll figure it out next week.
This is the most risk-free, no-brainer fight of Max Holloway's career. The idea. This is just fantasy land. This is just the UFC is taking advantage of it. Dana White does not think Conor McGregor is going to win this fight. No matter what he says publicly, nobody in the UFC thinks that Conor McGregor is going to win this fight. This is one more opportunity to do. Yeah, you just get to do one big last McGregor blockbuster event in a fight that I'm sure will deliver because it's Max Holloway on the other side of it. But it's one more opportunity for the UFC to, like, in the wake of UFC White House, cash in on Conor McGregor's name, which they're never doing all the time. That's getting so much worse. I swear to God.
Try using a different microphone. Try using like your phone. I'm using my phone, and I probably sound fine. Try mixing it up. Like use your computer audio or something.
Can you hear me?
Yep, you sound much better.
Yeah. Man, I guess I need new shit. This is driving me crazy.
Might be your internet connection.
Anyway, what I was getting at, is it still going?
I think it might be your internet, dude.
That's making the background noise?
It's just cutting out. It's not making any background noise.
So,
you sound better though.
All right, that's fine then. So this is one more opportunity for the UFC to cash in on Conor McGregor's name in the wake of UFC White House. They cannot reasonably believe that, like, for what we think we know about what Conor McGregor's life has been like over the last 6 to 8 years, what do you think Dana White knows? Conor McGregor in the last handful of 6 years has been accused of sexual assault. He became a billionaire at whiskey. He became an investor in BKFC, where he did a bunch of coked up press conferences and shit. Like, his life has been like he's rich, but his life has very clearly been in shambles. Is this not like very clear to anybody else? The people that are like, oh, I don't know though, it's Conor McGregor. It's like Conor McGregor is going to be competitive in this fight. But yeah,
Don't forget he floated running for Irish presidency too, and he couldn't because he was held civilly liable of sexual assault. He would have had to get like something like I can't remember 70% of signatures from politicians in Ireland to actually be able to be on the ballot. And then when he found that out, he was like, never mind. So just another saga I wanted to mention there, him pretending to run for Irish presidency.
crazy famous persons like story, Kanye did it, I think Roseanne did it, but I mean, in Italy, that's actually a qualifying factor that you actually jump points in Spain. But now, this guy's got a drug problem very clearly. He is probably involved in a lot of weird, seedy stuff behind the scenes. There was at one point $1 million hit out on his head from the leader of the Romanian mob because he punched that old kid in the face at a bar. He got caught banging some girl who was there with her boyfriend or fiance at some party in the bathroom. Just banana stuff, dude. His life is a nightmare. That is a perfect example of how having $1 billion and being a famous fighter is like hell on earth. That's what he's living. No matter what it looks like. That is not a good space to be coming into a fight with Max Holloway, who's been consistently fighting the best fighters in the world, and very few people have been able to beat him.
Mm-hmm.
Smash Max Holloway minus 225. Smash Max Holloway by knockout at any point. This is not going to decision. Even if Max wanted it to go to decision, he's not. Eventually, what you'll see is the last 6 years catch up with Conor McGregor in the second or third round.
Yeah, exactly.
He'll look pretty in the first. He might even land a good shot or two.
Mm-hmm.
But in the second or third round, you will see a body in there that isn't Conor McGregor. It's the exterior shell that once held a meteoric superstar that the sport has never seen. But really, it's sad to end off on that. But yeah, Max Holloway, no brainer.
Got a pretty good co-main too.
Yeah, and here we go. Very smart of the UFC covering their European tracks here at co-main event. Benoit Saint Denis against Paddy the Baddy Pimblett. Now, I was actually a little bit surprised to see BSD as the minus 142 favorite, Paddy the plus 122 underdog. But I get it. I'm just surprised because I thought public money. I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up pick'em by the time the fight actually goes. I think public money on Paddy as the underdog. But look what we're talking about with Paddy Pimblett, right? His last loss and his only loss in quite some time, his only loss in the UFC was for the interim lightweight title just a handful of months ago against Justin Gaethje. On paper, the fight doesn't look like it was that much of a blowout, but it absolutely was. Paddy got a very hard lesson back in January that there are levels to this sport. At the very top levels, even there are people on different echelons, and beating Tony Ferguson, beating Bobby Green, beating Michael Chandler, even the way that he did, it didn't mean anything that we thought that it might going into the Gaethje fight. He got absolutely wrecked. BSD is someone who was absolutely being thought of as a guy that will inevitably fight for the lightweight title one day. And maybe that was a little, jumping the gun. I mean, because he beat Matt Frivola, and then he was a favorite against Dustin Poirier.
That's pretty wild.
And so, he setback against Poirier, and then a loss to Renato Moicano that shouldn't have happened, but probably was a little bit like of the psychological hangover of the Dustin fight. And he's looked fantastic since then. 4 straight wins, 4 straight finishes over Mauricio Houfi, Beneil Dariush, and Dan Hooker. 3 wins that right now are more meaningful than any win that Paddy Pimblett has in the UFC. Even over Michael Chandler, all 3 of those wins, especially for what Mauricio Houfi just looked like, his life, and again, that was against Michael Chandler. What does it say? But BSD over these last 3 wins has looked phenomenal. Paddy's growing. That we're still the difference between him versus Jared Gordon, him versus Tony Ferguson, and then him versus Bobby Green, and him versus Michael Chandler. You saw 4 different better versions of Paddy as it went along. That guy is going to be improving. That is going to be, what gives him like the chance here, and what gives him like all the chance in the world to remain a contender for years to come. But I don't love this matchup for him coming off of the Gaethje loss. That wasn't just a loss. That's something that sticks in your psyche. I'd be really impressed if he was like able to look like he was completely past it and over it, like it didn't matter. I'm at -140. Seriously, folks, wait around to pick that. I really think that you're going to get a better number on BSD as we get closer to Saturday. If I had to pick some sort of method of victory, I would say, inside the distance. It's the only way he's ever won in the UFC. Can he do it in 3 rounds against Paddy Pimblett, who, was able to go 5 rounds getting the shit beat out of him by Justin Gaethje? That seems difficult. But you don't have to do method of victory. Money line here is comfortable. If Paddy wins, I think it'll probably end up being by decision. And it's hard to submit BSD. And I don't know if Paddy has the hands to knock BSD out. So that's, I think, there. I think that this is a ballsy matchup for Paddy Pimblett coming off of that last fight.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I do think I'm going to give Paddy a little bit of credit. I think this is going to be a close fight. I truly do kind of see it as a pick'em. I think BSD has the better wins for sure. But like you said, Paddy has continued to improve every fight. I think he's going to learn a lot from that Justin fight. And I think he's going to come in and give BSD a run for his money. So ultimately, I do lean BSD. But I think there is some value in Paddy as an underdog. So I do think you're right, though. I don't think if he wins, he's going to get a finish. So I think if you're going to bet on Paddy, you go by decision. Otherwise, BSD straight up.
And it's interesting, like, what's on the horizon for Paddy, too, is like, if he gets this win, or even if he doesn't, could it be Arman Sarukian next? Because they have their thing. What did he call him? Arman's a fucking sausage, whatever he said about him. And then, like Ilya could be on the table now too. Like, that's not like an untouchable, like invincible name anymore. Like, you could do Paddy versus Ilya if he gets this win, if you really wanted to. So, but who knows? Like, Justin Gaethje doesn't have a ton of time left at 37 years old either. So we'll see if the guys end up fighting for the vacant belt again. I'm sick of vacant belts. So then next up, we have an awesome bantamweight matchup between Corey Sandhagen, probably my favorite bantamweight in the division, has been for years here, and Mario Batista. Corey Sandhagen is the -135 favorite. Mario Batista plus a 115 underdog. If I was to handicap this blindly, I'd have Sandhagen like probably -185 in this fight. I think that's closer here. And Corey, let's talk about Mario first. So Mario was on an unbelievable run there for a period of well over 3 years. Really, still is on it. The only loss he has since March of 2021, where he fought a ton, is Umar Nurmagomedov by unanimous decision. It's just like this is a guy that it's like, dude, you would have been a lot better served not fighting so much. Because look how many fights it took you to get to this point, and now I don't even know how meaningful some of these wins were. Damone Blackshear, Ricky Simone. I give it credit that beats Ricky Simone. Jose Aldo in a fight that was like did not make Mario Batista any fans. Patchy Mix. A fight that, as I recall, I actually kind of thought Patchy Mix won, even though the fight was kind of, as I recall, a shitty fight because it was one of the couple of Patchy Mixes and they were not good. But I actually thought that should have been a win for Patchy Mix. And loses to Umar. He is coming off a submission against Vinicius Oliveira. So all good names, but it's different than what Corey Sandhagen has been up to for the last 5 years. The only people to beat Corey Sandhagen at bantamweight are the best in the world. He has a lot more losses than Mario over the last few years, but it's to TJ Dillashaw by split decision in a fight that I thought Corey Sandhagen won. A very close competitive fight with Yan, who is now the bantamweight champion. Knocked out Song Yadong. Beat Marlon Vera in the most bullshit split decision I think I can ever remember. Easily dealt with Rob Font. Easily finished Davison Figueiredo. And now he's lost 2 of his last 3, and it's by decision to Umar Nurmagomedov and Merab. And that fight against Merab, how hopeless it looked for Corey Sandhagen to be able to win that fight, even though he performed quite admirably, really shows how impressive Petr Yan's last performance against Merab was. Conor, my biggest problem with Mario Batista always is that I don't like the dude is obviously very skilled. He's obviously one of the top 10 bantamweights in the world. Corey Sandhagen is quite easily one of the top 5, if not one of the top 4, if not one of the top 3 bantamweights in the world, and has been for years. I've always said about Corey Sandhagen that on any given night, especially with Yan as champion, so it's like, so Merab isn't going to necessarily hold this undisturbed for a decade. Like, this could be with other people. Corey Sandhagen on any given night could be the UFC bantamweight champion. And if the people that he's lost to never existed, if you wiped them off the earth and I told you Corey Sandhagen was the best bantamweight in the world, you'd be like, wow, that guy's amazing. Like, clearly like one of the best bantamweights to ever live. Mario Batista can be so frustrated, so skilled, but he will choose just the easiest possible path, even if it's by the slimmest of margins. Corey Sandhagen doesn't. He's dynamic. He's a very unique body type for the division. I don't think that he'll have it was long enough ago that he fought Merab, and it wasn't like, it's psychologically trying to do everything you possibly can to beat a guy, and it's not enough. But it's not the same as like when people went to fight John Jones, and it's just like that dude's just speaking another language with his body in there. Like, Merab is just a machine. That's the frustrating thing about him. Corey Sandhagen will he'll hit Mario Batista hard. He'll be very, very hard for Mario Batista to submit, to take down. I think Corey Sandhagen has the edge here in most departments of fighting, and most importantly, if it does end up being a close decision, Corey Sandhagen will have done all the things to win that decision. And Mario Batista will, look back and regret at his inactivity. So I will say, or his, the lack of the effectiveness of activity. So I said Corey Sandhagen minus 135. Smash it.
Yeah, no, full agree. Fully agree here. I think Sandhagen is just the epitome of well-rounded and dynamic, like you said, and I think that serves a lot of problems for Mario Batista. I think someone dynamic, someone well-rounded and someone who can tack on some aggressiveness to that is Batista's worst nightmare. So I think he gets it done.
And now next up, we move to the flyweight division. Brandon Royval taking on Loner Kavanaugh. Brandon Royval, perennial contender in the flyweight division, wins over Tatsuro Taira, Brandon Moreno, Kai Kara-France, Tim Elliott. The only people to beat Brandon Royval are the best fighters in the world at 125 pounds. He's coming off 2 straight losses to Joshua Van, the current flyweight champion, and Manel Starboy K, who very well could be the next UFC flyweight champion. But the thing is, we've seen a little bit of a turning of the tide with Royval, and to that extent, Brandon Moreno, where like it is now time. We're seeing a very big sweeping passing of the guard in flyweight. Assume Conor's on his way back, or he can hear me. But we're seeing we're seeing like a tidal passing of the guard at flyweight, where it was Figueiredo, Moreno, Royval, KKF for so long, fighting back and forth on a carousel with each other for titles and number one contender spots. And Figueiredo's a bantamweight, and that's not going amazing. Brandon Moreno has now taken losses we didn't expect him to Loner Kavanaugh, where it not just like that wasn't fluky. Loner Kavanaugh, maybe it was stopped a little early, but Loner Kavanaugh just gave him the business in that brief, window of time that they had. And Royval, he's lost to Taira, which really he shouldn't have let it get to that point. It shouldn't have ended up being scored as close as it was, but he kind of let Taira get back into it and do some of the stuff that he's good at. And Royval, made the decision to slug, or brawl with Joshua Van, in that fight, which is not a smart move. It did produce like one of the greatest fights I've ever seen, but not a smart move. And then he gets finished by Starboy, very early in their fight. That's not a good sign going into this fight. Loner Kavanaugh, and I feel like I'm going real chalky here. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. This guy, born in 1999, and here's how you know that he is going to absolutely steamroll his way to a title belt. His only loss in the UFC is a knockout loss to Charles Johnson, which is just like, I mean, that's like magic beans to a UFC flyweight prospect. Right after that, I remember thinking, like, dude, he's taking on Brandon Moreno in this main event right after getting knocked out by Charles Johnson. And holy shit, did Loner Kavanaugh look phenomenal. Why did I think he got the finish in the fight? I'm stupid. I thought who did Brandon Moreno get finished early? They called it to her. It was Tatsuro Taira. Yeah. All right, Loner Kavanaugh won it, which is actually a lot more impressive to beat Brandon Moreno over the course of 5 rounds. He outclassed him in Mexico. So I think that if Brandon Royval wants to sit there and play the Brandon Moreno game, which Brandon Moreno was better suited to do because Royval is a great, seeker of submissions. Moreno is the more well-rounded of the fighters, and that's who you'd think would be able to beat Loner Kavanaugh over the course of fight. If Loner Kavanaugh goes out against Brandon Royval and does what he did against Brandon Moreno, then Brandon Royval will be lucky to last the 3 rounds that this fight is slated for. But as of right now, I will say that Loner Kavanaugh wins this fight by decision because they have only 3 rounds to work with. And by the way, Loner Kavanaugh is the minus 220 favorite, Royval the plus 185 underdog. And if Royval was plus 250, something around there, I'd start sniffing it. I'd be like, oh, this is Brandon Royval. Like, Loner Kavanaugh. No, but like at these numbers, like Loner Kavanaugh looked absolutely phenomenal. And you got to think that Brandon Royval over these last few fights is got to be on the tail, not the tail end. He's certainly like past the peak of his career.
Right. Yeah, he's taking a lot of damage. He's taking some losses. I think Leonard Kavanaugh's still not going to be able to finish him. I think Royval is tough, especially at 125 when they're not throwing around as much weight. So I like Leonard Kavanaugh by decision a lot here.
And so next up, we got a lightweight matchup. This is hilarious. Bobby Green versus Terrence T-Rex McKinney. What could happen? What couldn't happen? King Green, the plus 110 underdog. T-Rex, the minus 130 favorite. You know, it's so weird because, like, you go back the last 3 fights because Bobby Green got messed up in a handful of fights. He's been active for his age, for sure. Turns 40 this year. But I thought he was going to be done after Jalen Turner knocked him out because he legitimately looked dead. And Paddy Pimblett, you know, finished him so quick. Mauricio Hoovy knocked him out with like his big toe because that's how hard Mauricio Hoovy kicks. I thought that like he probably beat Lance Gibson Jr., but it was a very, very close fight. Daniel Zellhuber just has tremendous issues as a favorite against like older veteran fighters or whatever. He does not do well as a favorite. The odds makers have likened Daniel Zellhuber to like, you know, the Ignacio Bahamondes and the Manuel Torres, but like, he's not those dudes. He's a rung below. We've seen that now. And then his last one was a rear naked choke against Jeremy Stevens. What the hell am I supposed to do with that? Because the guy that he's fighting is not Jeremy Stevens. This is a very different animal. This guy isn't about to turn 40. He's won 3 of his last 4 fights, Terrence T-Rex McKinney. And if you haven't heard him already, there's some pretty banana statistics about Terrence T-Rex McKinney. Every single one of his UFC wins is a first-round finish. He has never been to round 3 in the UFC.
I was going to say, if there's one bet you make this whole card, just make a bet that fight ends in the first round. I like Terrence McKinney. I think he goes out there and gets a nice finish because I think typically Bobby Green needs a little bit of time to get in his rhythm, get his range, get his pacing, but Terrence McKinney's going to throw that off. So I like Terrence McKinney in this, but just bet on an ending in round 1. You'll win all the money in the world.
I mean, like, it seems so easy. If you're fighting Terrence T-Rex McKinney, just get past round 1. He's never won past round 1. And it's like, dude, like, he's going to run at you. And he's going to try to throw it, like, just blitzkrieg you with a knockout or a guillotine or something crazy. And people get caught in it. Like, there's something weird about this dude. Like, you know, if you just like danced around the octagon and jabbed for like a few minutes, like your chances of winning just went from 10 to 95% in a few minutes. I think Bobby Green has the ability to like do that on paper, but I don't think it'll happen. I think that like Bobby Green will try to knock T-Rex's block off. He'll try to make T-Rex extinct again. And I like at 40 years old, you know, you can do that against a good amount of it. Like he did it to Grant Dawson a few years ago, but like T-Rex will either submit or finish you in round 1, or you survive it. And so it's just like it's a coin flip. Like, do you think T-Rex gets the finish because his opponent is about to be 40? And his last win was against Jeremy Stevens. And we've seen him brutally finish by submission and knockout over the last handful of fights. I say yes. T-Rex inside the distance at least, because this is a closely handicapped fight, but also T-Rex in round 1 historically is pretty safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next up, we've got a light heavyweight matchup between Nikita Krylov and Robert Whittaker. Nikita Krylov had 4 of his last 6 fights dating back to July of 2022. That includes a knockout of Alexander Gustafsson, beat Volkan, submitted Ryan Spann, and looked dead in the water. Like after he got knocked out by Dom and Guzkov, it's like especially after the injury history, like this has got to be a wrap on Nikita Krylov. But Modestas Bukauskas had like a pretty good like head of momentum for him coming into that fight, and most people were on Modestas Bukauskas to win. You just assume that Krylov's chin was gone. Maybe it is, but he was able to knock out Bukauskas. And of course, like Nikita Krylov, he has the obligatory light heavyweight loss to Paul Craig earlier in his career. Lost it. Like his last 5 losses, his last 6 are hilarious. Bogdan, Dom Reyes, okay. Paul Craig, of course. Magomed, Glover, and Jan. The 3 former UFC light heavyweight champions. A guy that has beaten like 3 former UFC light heavyweight champions inexplicably. And then just 2 dudes that caught him at the right time. Like, and look, we didn't think Dominic Reyes had that resurgence back in him, and that got ended brutally by Carlos Oberg. But, people, sometimes people just have a bad stretch of a year. So that's what Krylov's been up to. And already off the bat, I do not like the move that Robert Whittaker is making. This is a guy that has been, he's a former UFC middleweight champion. Has beaten and fought every other good UFC middleweight over that span of years, other than Israel Adesanya. And now he's since the Dreykus fight, he's just in a different stage of his career. His last win was against Ikram Aliskerov, who was the favorite going into that fight, which is hilarious. He got his jaw broken by Hamzat, and then he lost that very, very, very close decision to RDR, almost like a little less than a year ago. I do not like it with Rob's mileage going up to light heavyweight. I'm sure there's like some good reasons and thinking behind it. I know that it can work out, but it just doesn't tend to be a winning move. When things aren't going, the best, to try to find new life at a bigger weight class, especially if the chin starts to go, you're fighting bigger dudes. I think that Robert Whittaker should win this fight. And by the way, Whittaker, the -130 favorite, Krylov, the +110 underdog. Really, I'll take Robert Whittaker money line at -130. I saw it at a different number earlier in the week. Krylov, I think absolutely could be a live dog here, but +110 isn't enough to entice me on him. But Nikita Krylov can absolutely win this fight based on his last performance against Modestas and where Rob's at in his career. I think Krylov can absolutely win this fight. He's just not, the well-rounded machine that we've seen Robert Whittaker be for so many years. And, Nikita Krylov never reached levels in his career at light heavyweight. Nothing even in the stratosphere of Robert Whittaker. But, if we were talking like +180, +200, that's something I would give a look to, especially like Krylov by knockout maybe. But like straight, like this is almost pick'em, so I'm leaning towards Robert Whittaker.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think Whittaker is just a better fighter. He's more well-rounded. He's more talented. But can he overcome the size difference? And I think the answer to that is yes, as long as he doesn't get caught. So I think you're either going to go Krylov by knockout or Robert Whittaker.
Yeah, I think Rob will just be a little bit too versatile for Nikita. Nikita can kind of be on a little bit of a line sometimes. He can just be a little bit too linear, and that's something
that is exactly where Robert Whittaker thrives.
Yeah, both of these guys. Yeah, no, absolutely. And Conor, the next fight, heavyweight Gable Stevenson versus Alicia Ellison. Oh wait, one more.
Oh God, take care of the underwears. I'm gonna you, man.
Gable, I love that clip. Gable is the -3,000 favorite. Ellison, the plus 1100 underdog. Well, let's talk about Gable. He's the heaviest favorite in the history of, I think, the UFC, if not just like the heavyweight division. This is going to be Gable at 26 years old, 3-0 in professional MMA. This is going to be a UFC. As to this point, he's knocked out someone in LFA. He knocked out someone in Anthony Pettis FC, knocked out someone, I believe it was for the Mexican Fight League title. Apparently it was just, but he 11-3 opponent in Mexican Fight League and round. That was actually not like just like some bum. Like that was actually a fighter with like a decent resume for, you know, the arena it was in. And he's coming off of a win Alexander Romanov at RAF 9 back on May 30th. It's more than that. Like the fight in Mexican Fight League, the fight in Anthony Pettis FC, when you watched him, it really was like, oh, never mind, this dude's the real deal. It's like when Lil Nas X put out his EP after Old Town Road, and you're like, oh, let's see what this dude came up with. When you listen, you're like, oh, bitch, it's good. Like every one of them, it was good. Damn it. So every time, the same with Bad Baby. And it was like, oh, she's a rapper now. Okay, let's listen. Oh my God, she's very talented. But so Gable, at every single he's had in MMA, he also, I know that he also fought in dirty boxing and won.
Yep.
Now, Ellison coming off first round knockout loss to Rondo Brisic back in September 2027. That was his UFC debut. There is not much to believe in his professional pedigree coming into the UFC. You know, he didn't fight anybody with much of a record as an amateur. The first opponent he fought with a winning record as a pro, him in round 2. He then did not fight another fighter with a winning record for another about 3 fights later, and he beat Rafael Brewster at Muckleshoot Fight Night, January of 2025. And then, you know, to his credit, Perisic, Perisic knocked him out in September, but you know, from what we've seen of the Balkan Bear since he debuted in the UFC, like that guy is very clearly somebody that everybody needs to watch out for at heavyweight. So I can forgive the loss to Perisic, but I don't see any reason why this fight with Gable should go any differently. Ellison is not on Gable's level. That is very clear from like 15 different things that you can look at. So, like, Gable has maybe beaten fighters with more impressive professional resumes than Ellison has beat in his profession. Yeah, Gable Stevenson. What? I mean, Gable Stevenson has won every MMA fight he's had in round 1. Gable Stevenson in round 1. I also don't think that the stage of this being on in this spot, I don't think that's going to bother him. I mean, he knew this moment was coming for a long time, and you know, he's been in the spotlight plenty. What bigger is there than a gold medal match in the Olympics? You know, for someone like this. So I don't think the stage will bother him. I think he'll be cool as a cucumber. I think he'll do business quite easily. Gable in round 1, at probably like minus 1,500.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, there's not even really need to talk about this one. Gable all the way, unless some crazy, insane fluke happens, which I don't think it will. Gable Stevenson, this is a layup for him. They want to give him a layup, understandably. Gable Stevenson round 1 all day.
Next up, Conor's going to stick around for 2 more, I believe. Oh, man. We got a bantamweight matchup between Cody Garbrandt and Adrian Yanez. Cody Garbrandt is understandably a plus 335 underdog. Yanez the minus 435 favorite. How is Yanez a bigger favorite than Max Holloway? He deserves to be a big favorite, but still. Yanez he's won one fight in his last 5. There was a draw in there in his last fight against Ricky Simone. In a fight, as I recall, the general consensus was that he should have been the winner of the fight. So, whatever. Lost a split decision to Daniel Marcos. He got knocked out by Jonathan Martinez and knocked out by Rob Font. Rob Font doesn't knock a lot of people out. And so with Adrian Yanez, you're looking at a guy that outside of his win over Vinicius Salvador and a win that he should have gotten against Ricky Simone, then the other most impressive wins are Tony Kelly and Davey Grant and Randy Costa. Yanez was someone that people were excited about for a little bit of time. It's like Michelle Pereira. There was some excitement, then they got a chance, and immediately it was like, okay, so that'll just never happen. That's not there. Cody Garbrandt is coming off a unanimous decision win over Zhao Long. He's actually won 3 of his last 5 fights now. Knocked out Brian Kelleher, decision win over Trevin Jones, lost a decision to Rayoni Barcelos, and got submitted by Davis and Figueiredo. I mean, the fight with Zhao Long wasn't awesome. None of these wins for Cody Garbrandt, even knocking out Brian Kelleher, that's not awesome. It doesn't mean that Cody Garbrandt should think very hard about retiring because there can't be much left of this. But God, I hate myself for doing this. But what the hell am I supposed to be so scared of Adrian Yanez for in this situation? Cody Garbrandt has actually won more fights than he's lost in the last.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always incredibly biased when it comes to Cody Garbrandt, but I like the odds here. I mean, he's a brawler. Yanez his best attribute is his boxing, and I think that fares well for Garbrandt. So why not? Garbrandt's a live dog. Take it. Take that 330 plus 335.
Yeah, and most of Yanez's wins have been by knockout. But Cody hasn't been fighting the most dangerous of people, is why he hasn't necessarily been knocked out brutally. And
I will tell you what, though, the way that Yanez lost to Rob Font, he got lured into a brawl, or not really. He tried to lure Font into a brawl, and Font knocked him out. I think Cody Garbrandt, if there's one thing Cody Garbrandt can do, it's lure you into a brawl. I think Yanez is going to try to lure him into a brawl and see that as a way to beat him. But I think Garbrandt's got to just land a good shot and knock him out. So that's what I'm hoping for, at least.
It just says some very not flattering things about a fighter when you get knocked out by Rob Font when you're supposed to be at this level, because Rob Font is a guy that can touch someone 300 times with his fists over the course of a 5-round fight and lose. Not something he does is put people away with his power. He's a good boxer, but he's a point guy. So it's either Yanez by knockout, which I'm sure is not that well priced. But Cody Garbrandt, I can't believe of all the underdogs I'm liking so far, I'm at plus 4 something or plus 330. I think that is, and that's not me being. I've never been a mega Cody Garbrandt fan or anything. But that is me saying what has everybody been seeing with Adrian Yanez? That I don't get. He can hit with power, but sometimes it's not even enough. There's a reason that the fight was close enough for the judges to call it a freaking draw against Ricky Simone. Something else happened in that fight, but he can hit hard. So it's either Yanez by knockout or Cody money line. That'd be awesome. And now for a featherweight matchup, we got another meteorically rising prospect in Luke Riley against friend of the podcast and friend of Conor and mine, Kai Kamaka III. Kai Kamaka is the plus 215 underdog, minus 255 favorite is Luke Riley. Not as bad as I thought it'd be really. So Luke Riley, undefeated at 13-0, had, there's a reason his career has progressed to this point this fast. He did great, before the UFC. He was very impressive. He was one of the top prospects that, everybody was just waiting for the UFC to sign, and they did. He's been a little slow, like he knocked out Bogdan Grad, which is an entry-level UFC fight, and this kid's still young. And then got a decision win against Michael Aswell in a fight that Michael Aswell was very game for. It was 30-27 on all three judges' scorecards, but Luke Riley definitely turned it up as that fight went on. But it wasn't an easy night for him. It was an impressive night, but it wasn't necessarily an easy fight. But Luke Riley is a guy that in his third UFC fight, we might see him look 5 times better than he's ever looked before. This guy is going to improve at a very fast rate. Kai Kamaka is coming off a split decision win against Dakota Hope. As he was welcomed back to the UFC. It's always been close fights for Kai Kamaka, both in the UFC and in Bellator and PFL. He's been on the right and wrong side of a lot of split decisions. That was the case in the UFC. The only person to put him away without question was Jonathan Pierce. I love Kai Kamaka. I love the fighter that he is. I loved watching him when he was in Bellator and PFL. I loved when he fights in Tough Enough. He's a great dude. His cousin Ray Cooper is also an awesome dude. You don't have to, you had me at Hawaiian Fighter when it comes to loving Kai Kamaka. Great guy. It was great talking to him. But this is also not a fight I think you would want to be in. Let's say that Luke Riley doesn't finish Kai Kamaka and that Kai Kamaka does what he does and makes it a competitive fight. This isn't a fight too where you'd want to be Kai Kamaka going to the scorecard. I think Luke Riley, Kai Kamaka is an underrated grappler and he's a very effective kickboxer. But I think Luke Riley is, on a different level of speed and athleticism right now. He's very spry at his age. He's going to be a lot better. And I think that everything that he does is going to be a lot more explosive. That's going to score better. And I think it's hard to say Kai Kamaka finishes him because we've never seen Luke Riley lose a fight, let alone get put away. So my inclination here is, with both of these guys' history, I'll say Luke Riley wins this by decision. This is the.
Sorry, I was just going to say I have to disagree here. This is one I have to deviate from you on. Maybe, again, some bias is creeping in here because I met Kai Kamaka. I like the dude, but I think he's well-rounded. He's a veteran. I think this is going to be one of those ones where the undefeated prospect just hasn't quite developed enough to stay undefeated. There's always going to be that one fight where they lose, they learn from, and it makes them better. And I think that's it. That's this fight for him. So I like Kai Kamaka here.
Yeah, this could be like Kai Kamaka's version of Chris Curtis versus Brendan Allen 1. This could be the start of Kai Kamaka's right. Now he's fighting in a fight night main event. That shit happens. I think there's going to be hiccups. This is a great test for Luke Riley. I think no matter what, if Luke Riley loses this fight by unanimous decision, Luke Riley is still a much better fighter after this for having spent time fighting a guy like Kai Kamaka. So it's going to be a positive experience today. So, yeah, I'm rooting for Kai. I will be rooting for Kai Kamaka. How can I not? So, Conor, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fights left. I believe this is the end of the regular prelims. You gonna get going?
Yep, I gotta get going. But thank you as always for having me, sir. Looking forward to this weekend, and we will stay updated with the fight predictions.
Everybody, Conor Bone Sloan.
I want to tell me what you see. Let's go ahead and see by the fight what you saw in the ring.
And And we've got 5 fights left. Women's flyweight, Tracy Cortez against Kong Lang. Tracy Cortez is I'm not hearing an echo anymore. Look at that. That could be internet. That could be audio on the other side. Who knows? Tracy Cortez is the -114 favorite. Kong Lang, the -106 underdog. So it's almost pick 'em. Let's start on the side that I am on. Let's start on the side that I'm not on. I would love to be on the Kong Lang side in this fight. 9-1 as a professional MMA fighter, decorated kickboxer. We all know the background there, and the names she's shared the ring with and been successful against. Kong Lang coming off of 3 straight wins. She had the submission and she got knocked down against Gabriela Fernandez, but she got submitted by Gabriela Fernandez. But here are the wins for Kong Lang in the UFC. Road to UFC, she beat Paula Luna. Then she knocked out Victoria Leonardo. Now, after the Fernandez lost 3 straight unanimous decisions over Bruna Brazil, Ariana De Silva, and Eduardo Mora. She did very well against Bruna Brazil. She 30-27 on all 3 against Brazil and Ariana De Silva. Now, Eduardo Mora was 29-28 for Wang on 2 of the 3 judges' scorecards. Mora ended up getting 8 minutes of control time. Kong Lang defended takedowns. Here's what really frustrated me with Kong Lang against Eduardo Mora is Kong Lang clearly has the skills to defend takedowns, the athletic ability, the athletic intelligence. But you still ended up taking down 3 times and on the mat for 8 minutes, or controlled for 8 minutes. She got the knockdown in that fight. She obviously got the better of the striking, but there's just there's some level of complacency almost to how Kong Lang defends grappling. And it seems weird to say, when she defended 75% of Eduardo Mora's takedown attempts. But we're about to talk about a different person. This is a person that I think is a very bad matchup for Kong Lang. Tracy Cortez only won 1 of her last 3 fights. Now, in the UFC, she's 12-3 as a pro. She has beaten Maria Agapova, Stephanie Egger, Justine Kish, Melissa Gatto, Jasmine Jazz Duvicius. And remember what she was able to do on her feet against Jasmine. She did very, very well in that fight. And we see Tracy Cortez when it's time to wrestle, she can very easily, because she got knocked down by Justine Kish. That's why it was a split decision. But she landed 3 of her 5 takedowns, controlled for 6.5 minutes. That ended up making a big difference. Against Stephanie Egger, 3 takedowns, almost 10 minutes of control time. Against Melissa Gatto, she got 2 takedowns. Gatto got 3, but Cortez controlled for 8 minutes to Gatto's 3 minutes. Against Vivian Araujo, 30-27 on all 3 cards. Tracy Cortez lands 3 of her 5 takedowns, controls for 8 minutes of the fight, and outstrikes Araujo 65-22. The only 2 losses for Tracy Cortez in her last 3 fights and in the UFC at all is a unanimous decision loss to Thug Rose Namajunas and a submission loss at the hands of Erin Blanchfield. So, especially with Rose, who is coming off that loss to Natalia Silva, but Rose has done very well at flyweight, and obviously as a former strawweight champion. Erin Blanchfield, as things maybe haven't gone the exact way she thought they would in that fight with Manon Ferro. That was a wake-up call, but Erin Blanchfield is still very young, is the crazy thing. Born in 1999. Only the best in the division, among the best in the world, have beaten Tracy Cortez in the UFC. And I think Tracy Cortez can very much handle herself standing up with Conor. Handle herself, all right? Doesn't mean hang out there, unless your jab is just absolutely hitting the whole net like we've seen it, do before. But I think she can, at the very least, survive and get through the part standing out with Kong Wang, do the things she needs, and then I don't think Kong Wang is going to be as successful defending those takedowns against Tracy Cortez as she was Eduardo Mora. I think we probably see maybe Cortez doesn't land 3 of 5, but like 3 of 6, 3 of 7. I think that's a well she'll go to. I don't think Kong Wang will be able to, get back up with the regularity she'll need. I just see the wrestling deficiency being the nail in the coffin in this fight. It'd be really cool if Kong Wang kept winning and kept going up the ladder. I'd love to see her fight for a UFC title. But I think this is a very troubling matchup for Kong Wang based on the few moments of vulnerability that we, have really seen from her in the UFC. So give me Tracy Cortez money line -114. And if you want to be more specific than that, give me Tracy Cortez by decision. That's +135. Hit it. Next up, we got a middleweight matchup between Damian Pinas and Cesar Almeida. Almeida is the +205 underdog. Pinas the -240 favorite. We can start with Cesar Almeida. Almeida getting up there in age. He's like 38 years old at this point. He's done all right in the UFC. The only losses in the UFC are by decision to Roman Kopylov and Cesare Alexijuk. Not bad. It's not like he's beaten world beaters. His, last 2 wins are Ihor Potieria and Abdul Razak Al Hassan. Cesar Almeida is he doesn't look like a middleweight. He's a good kickboxer. And I think that, if you're prone to getting knocked out, he can knock you out. And if you can't get him down and keep him down, which you absolutely can do. Kopylov and Alexijuk took him down a combined 11 times. You can absolutely do that. But if you're standing up with him, you're dealing with someone who has world-class skill in kickboxing. That could be problematic. Now, Pinas. I'm going to bring up Tapology, which I took down for internet purposes. So Pinas is 2-0 in the UFC. Both first-round knockout. Well, one was on the Contender Series over Vitor Costa. Then he knocked out Wes Schultz. I mean, a win over Wes Schultz isn't necessarily more meaningful than beating Abdul Razak Al Hassan. At least he's younger and, hungrier, and you haven't seen him lose a lot, in not awesome fashion. Some of the people that, Cesar Almeida is bait. Now, Pinas is from Aruba. They have a cool flag. His nickname is the Baba Yaga. He's 9-1 as a pro, 24 years old, 79.5-inch reach. It's a big reach advantage over Cesar Almeida. They're the same height, interestingly enough. Cesar Almeida is 38. Pinas is 24 years old. 8 of his career 9 wins are by knockout. 1 is by submission. His only loss is by disqualification because of an illegal kick. 5 fights into his pro career. Came up in Shooter, Brazil for a little bit. I wasn't amazingly impressed with Pinas's record before coming to the UFC. It was kind of whatever. But and I do use Cesar Almeida in a couple of DFS lineups because he's cheap. I think 7,300 on DraftKings, and it made some plays possible for me. It's a risk I'm willing to roll the dice on that for who I can afford if I take a chance on him. But Pinas is 14 years younger. He's got a huge reach advantage. He's putting people to sleep. He's finished every opponent he's ever fought. He's fought, at least 4, 5 dudes, of reputable quality. And, Cesar Almeida, he hasn't been knocked out in the UFC. I don't know if he was ever knocked out as a kickboxer, frankly. So it's hard to say like that, but if you're talking about it happening ever, it'd be when there's a 14-year age difference and you're talking about a guy like Damian Pinos. I think like this could take Pinos into some deep water though. Like if he's not able to completely outclass Cesar Almeida with grappling, if that's not a choice he makes, then you'll have to figure some stuff out. Striking with Almeida, but Almeida would be death by 1,000 cuts and a thin margin of victory. And if Pinos hits Cesar Almeida, the lights are probably going out. So with that, I'd say Pinos is minus 240. Pinos is minus 240, and Pinos by knockout is minus 110. Fine, hit it. And I don't know. It could be like, wait a second, did Cesar Almeida lose by split decision to Roman Kopylov? Wow. After getting taken down 5 times and knocked down, that's pretty great. I remember disagreeing with that. Because Alexa Juke made Almeida look absolutely helpless on the ground. He was. So yeah, Pinos by knockout. He's 14 years younger. He's a physical kind of freak with his dimensions. And he's from Aruba, and it'd be really cool to see a fighter from Aruba with a name as awkward to pronounce as Damian Pinos make his way up the UFC ladder. Next up, we got a bantamweight matchup between Farid Basharat and John Garza. What a Basharat matchup this is. I'm going to have to go to Tapology again on this one. So, as I feel like has been the case in every single Farid Basharat fight, he's a favorite by a considerable margin here. Farid Basharat minus 700. Garza the plus 500 underdog. Basharat was supposed to fight Ethan Ewing, which would have been awesome. And now we get him against 6-1 John Garza. Nickname Mowgli, 23 years old, and 3 wins by knockout, 1 by submission, 2 by decision. His only career loss is by knockout. Cut his teeth in some Fury FC, some Fury Challenger Series. Not ugly records and from the opponents that he beat, but not amazing ones. He won some amateur titles with AK and Peak Amateur Series. So I had a good amateur career. And it's just like, as a pro, I believe that this guy was going to get a UFC shot soon. This is just going to be a very tough fight. Now, he's never, even as an amateur, lost when the fight goes the distance, interestingly enough. And Basharat, the Basharats have been like a heel just in their career, just by not even having to do heely stuff. Because G Matsumoto, I thought, beat Farid Basharat. And so, Basharat, a guy that is so good at taking fights 3 rounds and, comfortably winning, that stung people because it just felt like Farid Basharat was getting a default decision win. But it was a very close fight. I just thought G Matsumoto won. And I typically do quite well betting on G Matsumoto. He's beaten Chris Gutierrez by unanimous decision, Taylor Lapalus by unanimous decision, Damon Blackshear by unanimous decision. Not amazing, but the last 2 are, very reputable wins. This guy isn't a crazy volume striking guy most of the time, but he has volume. He's not a crazy volume wrestler. Sometimes he doesn't need to be because the control's there. But against Taylor Lapalus, he landed 5 of 16 takedowns and got 7 minutes of control time. He's just good at a 3-round pace. Now, that's something Garza, it's been very hard to get. No one's ever gotten the better of Garza in a decision. But at 23 years old, against Farid Basharat, look, if you were fighting a Bonfim, it'd be one thing. But Farid Basharat, I think, had a little bit of a scare with Gene Matsumoto. And, maybe he comes out just like a hair, more aggressive, vigilant. Because the way that, Garza would get Basharat is just by, surprising him with 23-year-old 6-1 energy. But I think Basharat is just too skilled. But any Basharat fight, I think, could go south because it's a lot of point. And so if you just have some big moments against Basharat, which people haven't really been able to do, then we're maybe talking about a decision that ends up a lot closer. But right now, we're talking about a 23-year-old coming in on short notice against a guy that is going to make you, probably going to make you fight for 15 minutes, which isn't the best recipe. And it's not like Farid Basharat is he's really not a prospect anymore. He's as old as me, apparently that's old. So, it's not I don't think mentally I think he'll go out there and take care of business the way that he treats every other fight. Go up, outstrike them slightly, get some takedowns. If you don't get a takedown, try again. You'll probably get it. And, win on the judges' scorecards here. Farid Basharat, they don't have the odds up yet because this was a late replacement, but Basharat by decision, this fight to go over 2.5 rounds is minus 115. On whose account? I think given the kind of weirder circumstances, the history of who Farid Basharat is, the fact that the fight really is a lot safer if your plan is to draw Garza into deeper water as opposed to, maybe looking before you're ready to get him out of there. So I say Basharat by decision over 2.5 minus 115. Next up. All right, we got 2 fights left. We got Zach Reese against Ryan Gondra. Ryan Gondra, the minus 135 favorite. Zachary Reese, the plus 115 underdog. Ryan Gondra. Bring up Tapology. Hate that I have to. Nickname Problema. It's pretty cool. 9-1 as a professional. 31 years old. Hails from Brazil. 5 wins by knockout, 2 by submission, 2 by decision. Only career loss is by knockout. Won his UFC debut against Jose Daniel Medina with a round 1 knockout. And had a win on the contenders. This, Gondra has a couple of the boxes you like to see checked. For a guy that's new to the UFC that you're trying to kind of figure out as it goes along. Wins over double-digit opponents that, in fights that aren't absolute shams, check. Multiple wins in LFA, check. All knockouts, over the last 4 fights, check. Win on the contender series against an 8-2 opponent who I thought certainly had a chance in that fight, check. Wins his UFC debut, and it's not against the most impressive name in Jose Medina, but he went in there and took care of business in his debut. That's all you can ask for from people. So Ryan Gondra does indeed look to be a problema. Now, Zach Reese, I have hated trying to figure this dude out. You can see from his record in the UFC, this guy at one point was had a prospect air. I don't know where that ever came from. Or maybe I'm making it up, but he has 4 wins in the UFC. Julian Marquez, Jose Daniel Medina, who he took to decision. It was unanimous, but he did not finish Jose Daniel Medina. Dusko Todorovic by unanimous decision, and Jackson McVeigh. He has been finished by Azamat Bakoev. He got knockout slammed by Cody Brundage. Had the no contest with Cedricus Dumas, and he is coming off a split decision loss to Michel Pereira just back in February. A fact that I think was probably correct in the way that it was scored. That matchup was a bummer. That's who they gave Pereira. That was they're like, oh, we put you in a main event at one point against Anthony Hernandez. And now, you're going to fight Zach Reese if you're going to get another, win under your belt. And then for Zach Reese, it's damn, you became the guy they feed to Michel Pereira to get him back on, in the win column. I don't, Zach Reese is well-rounded, but he has only displayed this well-roundedness against a low tier of the UFC middleweight division. And counting Cody Brundage and the fact that he wasn't, counting what happened against Cody Brundage, less than 3 years ago, and the fact that he wasn't, he was very close, but wasn't able to beat Michel Pereira at the point that Pereira was at in, his recent span of fights. I got to go Gondra here. I think even if this was to go the distance, Gondra's done that before, rarely, but he's done it. He's had some amateur boxing fights too. That's interesting too. He fought the right people to get to this spot. He's taking care of business with early knockouts in his 2 LFA fights, his Contender Series fight, his UFC debut. Zach Reese, you would be hoping could eke out a close decision that he wasn't able to against Pereira. Gondra knockout is very much on the table here, and that is the direction I'm going. You could go Gondra money line minus 135. That'd be perfectly acceptable at Zachary Reese is just one of these dudes that it's a mystery. He's just like Cody Brundage and Cedricus Dumas, just very, very weird career history and very hard to identify patterns. But Gondra by knockout is minus 120. That is when he's the minus 135 favorite. Gondra by knockout is minus 120. Gondra by decision is plus 1,000. Just go Gondra money line at minus 135 or go Gondra by decision plus 1,000. By decision, people enter the UFC with all knockouts or on a big knockout streak all the time. Very rarely does that last forever. And getting so low a value on Gondra by knockout, that why cast a more narrow net? Just go money line at minus 135 or take a flyer on Gondra by decision, where especially if Zachary Reese is able to do any successful grappling, that's more possible than plus 1,000. Get the hell out of here. Those are the two areas I would lean on that point. Hit them. And we are now to the last fight of the card. We are opening up UFC 329 with a flyweight match between Alessandro Costa and Cody Durden. And Cody Durden is the plus 200 underdog. Costa the minus 235 favorite. And let's start with Durden, because he is coming off a unanimous decision win over Rafael Filo. Is kind of being like Filo's gold, fool's gold, whatever. I was on Filo pretty heavy going into that fight with Cody Durden, but Durden, took care of business and all his areas of strength. It was a frustrating fight if you were behind Filo, but Durden was on 4 straight losses before that, and he had lost 6 of his last 7 fights before that, dating back to December of 2023. Love the activity level. He had that submission against Matt Schnell, but he had been mostly finished against the likes of Tajiro Lembekov, Bruno Silva, Joshua Van. That was actually a decision. Jose Ochoa, Alan Nascimento, and Nyamjargo Chimendimbarel. So it just kept getting worse for Cody Durden. And this guy, he has wrestling chops, but he loves to brawl. He loves to be entertaining. It's cost him in the past. Also has wins over Jake Hadley and Charles Johnson. He's been around for less than 6 years, but has gotten a good amount of mileage in. But Philo, we just thought was of a slightly different echelon. It turned out that he wasn't. It didn't make the losing streak for Cody Durden any less concerning as time went on, and the opponents decreased in their difficulty level. And credit to Cody Durden for getting back, getting another win back on the board. Alessandro Acosta has won 3 of his last 4 fights. And more importantly, so who are his 4 wins in the UFC? And by the way, for flyweight, this is crazy. Past the Contender Series. Ew. Past the Contender Series, all 4 of his wins in the UFC have been by knockout. You don't see that at flyweight a ton. Now, the first one was against Jimmy Flick. Then he knocked out Kevin Borjas. And we were recently reminded of the kind of dude that Kevin Borjas is. That, might seem under the radar, unassuming. Kevin Borjas is a, high-quality fighter. And then knocked out Stuart Nickel, knocked out Matt Schnell. The last of those wins is probably the least impressive of those in my head right now. Schnell Schnell was just a couple fights past when would have been like the totally best time to retire. But the only people to beat Alessandro, he has 5 professional losses. Here are 3 of them because they've all come in the UFC. Amir Albazi, December of 2022. Steve Erceg, by unanimous decision, November of 2023, was 29-28 on all 3 judges' scorecards. Hell, maybe Alessandro Costa would have gotten a way too quick title shot, if he had ended up winning that. And then Alden Correa, who, he knocked him out back in September of 2025. Correa, 12-3. He's young. He's well on his way up in the flyweight division. We might be talking about Correa, quite soon in the same air as Albazi and Steve Erceg. Give him a couple more opportunities or whatever. So I don't think that this bodes well for Cody Durden. Alessandro Costa's resume is quite legit. It's not like, getting back on the board against Rafael Filo. It's not even I liked him going into the fight with Nyamjargo because Nyamjargo had just road to UFC chops up to that point, a loss to Carlos Hernandez, and then another road to UFC win. That was past Cody Durden. Nyamjargo was past Cody Durden at that point. Alessandro Costa, for a guy that is finishing this percentage of his wins by knockout at flyweight, that is someone that you do not want to be facing as the mileage adds up. It's not like Cody Durden's been knocked out a ton over, this losing period since UFC 296, but he's taken plenty of damage. We've seen, a lot of times where at the end of it, you could tell by Cody Durden's face that he did not win the fight. So give me Alessandro Costa by knockout. Maybe I go back and do another couple of DFS lineups or something because I'm liking more people as I've talked about them. Costa by knockout is plus 215. Hit it. Costa to cover the spread minus 3.5 is minus 160. I really don't hate that either. So yeah, folks, that is all 14 fights on the slate for UFC 329. The main event, Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway 2. And again, I've put all my bets and DFS lineups and picks and everything on Instagram at RotoBrady MMA. I also post short videos on YouTube and regular videos and on all that stuff. So follow me on Instagram at RotoBrady MMA. Follow the podcast at Tap the MMA Podcast on YouTube and Spotify. Go check out my recent interlude episodes with some very interesting folk. Charles Miller of Striker Fight Network and Chad Fishburne, international ring announcer. Great conversation. Also, the conversation with Cornell Beecham Jr. Got to do a lot of interlude episodes, and the calendar is filling up quick after my last round of reaching out to people. Check out my short videos, regular videos, stuff on Instagram, all that stuff. I'll be putting out some stuff for PFL Mania and Octagon coming up this weekend too. Before we go, I'll just tell you what my DFS lineups are to this point. I put them together, I think, last night before I did this, obviously. I signed into the freaking sports book, but I'll go ahead and tell you my bets so far. There's not many. A WNBA parlay going right now. I swear if Caitlin Clark is hurt, how much time is in this game? About to be halftime. She has 4 points. There better be extenuating circumstances. Anyway, I have a 2-pick parlay of Corey Sandhagen and Gable Stevenson to cover -3.5. That's -133. I have a 2-pick parlay for Max Holloway to cover -5.5 and Corey Sandhagen money line. That's +163. Max Holloway by knockout -125. And then I have a 3-pick parlay of Max Holloway, Corey Sandhagen, and Gable Stevenson all money line at +150. DFS lineups. I clicked the freaking sportsbook again. All right. My DFS lineups. First one, I did not do. I'm picking one guy each in the main event. It's all Max Holloway. Holloway, Tracy Cortez, Benoit Saint Denis, Cesar Almeida, Leonard Kavanaugh, Corey Sandhagen. The person I'm kind of biting the bullet on is Cesar Almeida. Next one, Max Holloway, Cesar Almeida, Brandon Royval. He was cheap too. Sandhagen, Tracy Cortez, and I did that to avoid Gable Stevenson. And then my third lineup, Max Holloway, Kong Wang, BSD, Almeida. I used Almeida in all three. Damn, it really was tough to afford some people this week. Robert Whitaker and Corey Sandhagen. Folks, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Tap That MMA podcast. We had Conor Bones Sloan on tonight to talk about UFC 329. Again, follow me on Instagram at RotoBrady down there on the screen. You can see it. Have yourselves a great week. Enjoy a blockbuster card, and peace.
You're watching it slow, not chasing hot takes. From the prelim lights to the title fight glow, every round got a lesson if you're watching it slow. Not chasing hot takes, we're chasing what's true. Finding diamonds in the regional scene before they break through. We respect every style, every path, every craft. Break and take frame by frame while the rest just react. No gimmicks, just rhythm, every breakdown precise. Where the numbers meet the nuance, that's the edge, that's the price.